Classmates. So today we're going to talk about mid-air collision avoidance. First, I got to tell you, there's a great article on IOPA that I used for a lot of my review and just to kind of align my thoughts for creating this video. I'll be referring to my notes, so if I look down a lot, hopefully it's not annoying. So first, just knowing your risk, I think, is the first thing that I think about. 1/10 of your collisions occur during takeoff and time. About a quarter of them occur during cruise. But it's important to note that a half of the collisions occur during the traffic pattern, and about 80% of those occur during approach and landing. So, you look at your critical parts of flight, and you can kind of assess the risk and where, and maybe your spidey senses or the hair on the back of your neck can stand up at the right times. But the other big thing that I take out of reviewing for mid-air collision avoidance is that you can do a lot of stuff in your planning. So the first kind of things we can do is make sure we know our route. So 91-103 is something we learn in either private pilots or instrument that tells us, we need to know about our weather, we need to know about destinations and those kind of things. So landing runway lengths is one of them that hopefully jumps out at you. And one thing I think I would add in there is making sure you know the pattern altitude, because asking for it right before you're getting there, or trying to fumble through and finding it on your charge supplement, that's probably going to take some heads down time at a time when you should be looking outside and looking for traffic. So besides knowing your route, taking a look at the route that you're doing, especially if it's unfamiliar, and kind of trying to plan out any kind of congested airspace. So the congested points are things where it's cited that in the cruise or in those approach phases that a lot of these accidents happen, is people not picking up the visual on traffic when you're in congested points. And some of those are stuff like converging on VORs. Even if you're in IFR traffic and you're getting flight following, you still doesn't necessarily stop you from having VFR traffic around you. So those are known points. Is VOR traffic over small fields. So avoiding those things, staying high above a small field, because there's going to be traffic there. And things like that. So avoiding known traffic area is a great pre-flight planning type thing. And if it's a known type flight, even more important that you keep those in mind, so that prior to your flight you have a couple of ideas in the back of your head. And you may not use them until you get to that area of flight, but at least you have it already flight planned, and it goes hopefully from the back of your head to the forward part of your head when it's time to approach those areas. When you do, make sure you're having a good visual lookout. And I'll get to the visual lookout in general near the end. So more your pre-flight type stuff. Once you've done your pre-flight and you get into the airplane, make sure you pre-flight your cockpit well. So you can pre-flight your cockpit by having your charts available and handy. When you have your charts and you're planning to use them, and you got a good habit pattern, you're old school and you're all charts, then make sure and have them folded to like the area you're going to fly. Because fumbling around, I think a lot of us has done this, and we're kind of folding stuff, and next thing you know, your entire windscreen is covered by this chart. So hopefully you got them folded before you go flying. And by the way, you don't have it folded and sitting in the back in your helmet bag. So you have it maybe somewhere handy on the side of your seat, or somewhere next to you, and it's easy to get to. Same goes for approach plates. If you have them on an e-board, they're not something you have to go fishing for, because you have 20 approach plates from the last 5 flights. You've got those approach plates handy. If you use digital stuff, make sure you use it. I use an iPad with ForeFlight, so I've learned some lessons on looking for my approach plates, looking for, because I reviewed stuff but I missed a detail, so I'm trying to find something silly like a VOT, because I want to do a check. I mean, that's ground ops, but still, looking for something silly and you just can't find it. Be familiar with that digital aid that you're using for flight. Finding an approach, if I don't have it, having to download a new one, those kind of things take time, and they take a lot of heads down time. And you can literally, your digital device is great and it's a great aid, but it could also suck some SA around from you. A big lesson I learned, or a phrase we used to use in my military training, was, unfortunately you don't realize you lost SA until you gain it back. So be ready for those things. Be prepared for your flight. Have as much conveniently aligned and ready for your use, so you're not heads down at critical phases, especially in those congested areas, or worse yet, when you're getting ready for landing in flight. So after that, you get into flight. So once we're in flight, and hopefully we've done all this preparation we talked about just now, that while you're there, making sure you're communicating where you're at, where you're going, If it's IFR flight, obviously that's normal, but if it's VFR, then using the common traffic frequencies and those kind of things, making sure you're communicating at least 10 miles out from a field, so that you let people know where you're going, and then stop and listen. You have to listen and listen to other air traffic and create a 3D picture of where those people are at, so that you can project where they're going to be when you get closer, and then you can communicate with each other, and hopefully, on the radio you can deconflict. Sometimes you got somebody who's not talking on the radio, but the beauty of traffic patterns is oftentimes responsible pilots will point those people out as well. So if we've done all that, using the stats, so we've mitigated as much risk as possible, then the last thing you need to do is make sure that you have a good visual scan. One of the things that the NTSB says is that they'll put a statement out there of lack of ability to acquire the traffic airplane. So I don't know about you, but if I ever get in an accident, when I'm a smoking hole in the ground, I don't want anybody to cite my fault for doing something stupid. And one of those is saying that I couldn't see a traffic that was a conflict. And so we got the habits that we should have learned, hopefully a private pilot, which is scan little small sections of the sky. Don't focus on any one thing. Don't focus on anything in the cockpit, because it takes your eyes away from the sky. Even heck, all the way back to your pre-flight, like being rested and not having alcohol in your system, not having too much stuff that affects your eyesight or makes you tired, because all those things affect your visual acuity. There's a lot of things that go into it, but it all comes down to the very end of having a good traffic pattern scan. Again, that goes back to knowing the traffic pattern. That's pre-flight, so that all that knowledge comes to bear at the critical phases of flight, where you're in a congested area and you kind of know where to look. Even if you've never been there, you can picture in your mind, I need to look over left, that's the downwind for the heavy runway. I'm going to go to the non-used runway or something like that. Just little things for a good scan pattern, and making sure that you're ready for that. Beyond having a good scan pattern is use all your resources. We get taught that, right? So you got passengers, and sometimes passengers can help you. So if they're a trained pilot, then that's great. Obviously they should be familiar with it, and you can point out things and use clock patterns. If they're a passenger, you can kind of include them in the game, if you will. Teach them clock patterns and visual pickups of traffic, and then they can get involved in helping you find traffic. And they might just find that's a really useful thing they do, and it keeps them involved in the flight. Something else that was really annoying to me in my military days, and it still is, I use a 172 of the Garmin 1000. So people just touch the screen and they mess with it, and then they go flying, and it's dusty. I live in Vegas, so it's dusty from flying around, and people just don't care about cleaning stuff. And it's not critical, it's not required for flight, but gosh, it sucks to me to lose visual or not be able to have a visual just because of dust on the windscreen, and you're looking at a sunset or a sunrise, and that glare is just killing you. The same thing goes with your display. So if you got those fingerprints, the glare on the display just right, that can make it so it's really hard to see some of the things. And now your head's down again, you're looking like this, at stuff, and all those things are not good. So just clean your displays, clean your cockpit, clean the windshield, and that kind of stuff will help you pick up those tallies on traffic earlier. So that's it. I think there's a lot. Hopefully not too much. You're not bored by the video, but that's kind of a wrap up. Again, give credit for AVIA for a great article on collision avoidance. It helped me kind of review a lot of stuff. I looked a couple other things up and helped me kind of formulate what was I going to say. I'd encourage you guys to look it up, and safe flying.